Welcome to the Japanese Cultural Center in Saginaw, Michigan. My name is Jack Sustic, and I am going to show you how to make a bonsai out of this juniper. So before I do that, I'd like to talk about bonsai a little bit. One of the most common questions I get is, how do you make a bonsai? And there's different ways of doing that. You can grow bonsai from seed, you can grow bonsai from cuttings, you could go to a local nursery and purchase a plant similar to this, or you can go into the wild and collect one. These are some examples of cuttings. This is a 1-year-old cutting that I did last year. This is a 2-year-old cutting, and a 3-year-old cutting. As you can see, it progresses. So in about 3 years, you could have a small, to start to develop a small bonsai from this tree. This is a cutting that I did that is about 5 years old. And as you can see, it's in a bonsai pot now. And here's another example of a cutting, and this is about 10 years old. Interestingly, this tree is about 10 years old also, but it was just allowed to grow. It was never pruned and styled like a bonsai until today. And then this juniper over here was collected in a garden, and I collected that about 7 years ago. And there was a garden in Maryland at the time, and they were renovating the garden, redesigning it, and digging up a lot of these junipers. And so I asked them if I could take a few, and they allowed me to. And this, I think I took about 4. And this one turned out to be the best for a bonsai. So you can see that if you can go out into the wild, or if you notice your neighbor is digging up trees and re-landscaping, you can start with something with a much larger trunk than you can with if you grow something from seed or from a cutting. So this juniper, all these are junipers, all these are different types of junipers, but this is a juniper called Shimpaku juniper, or Juniperus chinensis variety sargentii, or sargent juniper. In Japan it's known as Shimpaku juniper. Very nice tight foliage, makes a bonsai very nice, like this one, the nice foliage pads. So, the first thing that we want to do when we're looking at this tree is I want to look at the base, and I want to look at the movement of the trunk. And I did have a chance to study it, so I have an idea and a plan for it, but I need to take it out of this container so I can see the trunk better. I'll pull away some of the soil so I can get a look at the root system. We want a tree that has a nice radiating root system, the roots that come out in all directions on the tree. I want to try to avoid a tree that has only roots on one side and none on the other side. So I pull away the roots. Sometimes if you go to a local nursery and you see somebody that's doing this and they're pulling the soil away from the edge, you can bet that they're a bonsai person. They're trying to find a nice specimen to work on. So this has got a nice base to it, right from this side. And it has a nice movement to the trunk. You can see the trunk has a nice movement. But I want to tilt it up just a little bit. It's one of the nice things about designing a bonsai at this stage is that you can position it any way you want it. So I like this position of of the trunk, I like the movement, and then I'll have to come back here and I'll have to choose an apex. But right now I'm gonna tighten it up a little bit. I'm gonna remove branches that I know I'm not going to need. I don't want branches that are pointing straight out at me. We call those eye-poking branches. So in a classic bonsai design, the trunk comes out of the soil and the first branch goes to one side of the tree, not toward you and not away from you, but to one side. And then they alternate going on the other side as they go up the tree. But that's in the perfect world, and we're working with nature, so that's not always there. So when I look at the trunk, I can see this branch sticking straight out here toward us. So I'm gonna leave it, cut it, but I'm gonna leave it a little bit long. And you'll see why I do that in a minute. I want to try to, like I said, when you design it, you want to have branches that kind of alternate. So I don't want to have two branches, we call them bar branches, that are growing out kind of at the same place, right next to each other. And I have to look at the back. So I'm still going through eliminating branches I don't need. One of them that I know I don't need is this branch right here that's growing straight up. I want the branches here to be coming down, working their way down on the tree, not going straight up. So I know I don't need this one. And now I have to choose an apex. And I have several options here for choosing the top of the tree. But I like the movement of the trunk, and I like this branch right here. It has nice movement because I can put a wire on here and bring it up. So then the whole tree will have nice movement. And I am going to do what we call jin, or shari, on this part right here, which is it's deadwood, just like the deadwood on that tree. Once I get the tree cleaned up, I've eliminated branches that I don't want, then I can begin to wire it and place the branches. So we'll talk about the tools just a little bit, and whether there's any special kind of bonsai tools that you need. And really the only one that, the most important are these, and these are called concave pruners. And what they do when you make a cut, like I did up here, what that does is it creates, this is beveled, so it creates a little concave cut. And then when that heals over, it'll heal over flat. And you'll never even know that there was a branch there. The choice of scissors, you can get the most expensive scissors or the cheapest scissors as long as they cut and they're sharp. That's the most important thing. I tend to go with the cheaper kind, and I take care of them and use them for a very long time, and then just replace them with another cheaper pair. So one thing that I'm trying to do is recreate a tree that's growing up high in the mountains. And so that's, if you go up high in the mountains, you'll see these junipers and evergreens that are growing, and they often have, 9 times out of 10 will have deadwood on them. And because of the conditions are so harsh, over time they start to turn white like that out in the wild. I'm going to do the same thing with this branch. The deadwood on these old trees that grow up way up high in the mountains are part of what makes them beautiful. Oftentimes, you won't see deadwood on a deciduous tree like a maple or a beech tree as a bonsai. I'll just get as much of this as I can. I'll come back and clean it up later. Right now it's longer than probably than what it will end up being, but again, it's better to leave them long in the beginning and then take them off as you work on the tree, because like I said, you can't put those back on. Once you take them off, they're off. Okay.
So now we want to position the branches where we want them. And it would be nice if we could just tell them where to go and they will stay, but they won't do that. So we have to wire them. And there's two different types of wire. There's copper wire and aluminum wire. And today I'm going to use aluminum wire. This is copper coated aluminum wire. The only drawback to the aluminum wire is you have to use a larger gauge than you do with copper wire. Copper wire, you can use a little smaller gauge to achieve the same purpose, but copper wire is very expensive. So oftentimes I'll use aluminum wire. If this was more of a finished tree like that one and I wanted to wire it and I was getting ready to show it, I would use copper wire because copper wire holds that copper color and you don't really notice it. That has copper wire on it now. With aluminum wire, over time this copper coating wears off and then you see the aluminum color, and it's a bit unsightly. But for this tree, I don't plan on showing this tree for several years, so using copper wire is okay.